My name's Claire. I've been a registered nurse for 8 years, 5 of them in the intensive care unit of St. Agnes Memorial Hospital, an old, brick building that looks more like a cathedral than a hospital. It's the kind of place that always smells faintly like bleach and dust, and no matter how hard the janitors work, the hallways still creak under your shoes. The building's been here since the 1940s, and it feels like it remembers everything that's ever happened inside. The night shift used to be peaceful. The machines beeped in steady rhythm, patients slept, and the rest of us tried not to think about the ghosts people joked about. Lately though, I've been picking up more overtime. 12-hour shifts bleeding into 16. No real sleep, just caffeine and fluorescent light. At some point, your body stops caring about time. Days and nights blend. You start to forget what silence sounds like. That Tuesday started like any other, storm outside, half the ICU empty because of renovations. It was just me, one respiratory therapist named Jonah, and 4 patients. Around midnight, Jonah took his break. I stayed behind to chart vitals. The lights above me flickered once, then steadied, old wiring again. That's when I noticed it. Bed 9's monitor, one of the empty rooms, was beeping faintly, showing a pulse. I checked the census. No one had been in bed 9 for days. We'd cleared it after a patient named Mr. Halverson passed away last week. The monitor shouldn't have been on. I walked down the hall, every step echoing. The air was colder near that room, like someone had cranked the AC too high. The curtain was half drawn. Inside, the bed was made, sheets tucked tight, the smell of antiseptic strong. The monitor beside it blinked. BPM, 72. O2 sat, 98%. It was reading a live patient. My stomach dropped. I checked the sensors, they weren't attached to anything. Then, faintly through the monitor speaker, I heard what sounded like breathing. Slow, wet, uneven. If it was a glitch. They happened sometimes with the old machines. But when I turned to leave, I noticed something that froze me in place. The bed sheets were wrinkled, like someone had just gotten out of them. When Jonah came back, I laughed it off, told him the monitor shorted out. He shrugged. That thing's older than me, he said. But later, when I checked the system logs, bed 9 had registered patient vitals for 3 minutes and 42 seconds. The entry timestamp matched exactly the time of Mr. Halverson's death, 1 week ago. The next few nights blurred together. I started hearing things, the hiss of oxygen tanks when no one was around, footsteps pacing between rooms. I'd glance at the glass ICU windows and swear I saw figures moving just out of view, silhouettes bending over beds that weren't occupied. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was grief. Nurses see too much death. But something about that wing of the ICU felt wrong now. The temperature dropped every time I passed bed 9. Once, when I bent to pick up a chart, I saw bare footprints on the tile, like someone had walked through water. They led to bed 9, and stopped. On the 5th night, one of my real patients, a woman recovering from cardiac surgery, suddenly woke up in a panic. "He's here," she whispered. "Who?" I asked, adjusting her for. "The man from the other bed. The one with the white eyes." Her vitals spiked. I tried to calm her, told her there was no one else in the room. But she grabbed my wrist and said, "He said you're next." Her monitor screamed, "Code blue." I hit the alarm, called for Jonah, but before he arrived, she flatlined. We brought her back after 2 minutes. She survived. But when she opened her eyes again, she refused to look at me. Later, I overheard her whispering to another nurse. It followed her. It's behind her right now. I turned, nothing. But from that night on, every time I stood in that room, the glass door would fog up, like someone was standing just inches from the other side, breathing. By the end of that week, I'd stopped sleeping. I'd go home, lie down, close my eyes, and all I'd hear were those monitors. Beep, beep, flatline. One night I came in early. The corridors were empty, lights half off. The janitor mopped near the end of the hall. I nodded to him, but he didn't move, didn't even look up. When I passed him, the mop bucket was empty. And when I turned around, he was gone. I keep telling myself it's the stress. The sleep deprivation. The overwork. But sometimes, when I chart vitals at 3 a.m., I catch my reflection in the ICU glass. And for a split second, it isn't me looking back. When the lights go out. By the time my 6th straight night came around, I'd stopped trying to convince myself it was nothing. The ICU didn't feel like a hospital anymore, it felt like a loop. The same lights flickering. The same hum of machines. The same empty corridor leading back to bed 9. Every shift, I told myself, this time I'll ignore it. But the more I tried, the louder it got, that low mechanical heartbeat of the monitors that never stopped. Around 2:40 a.m., I realized one of the patient charts was missing. Bed 9 again. I laughed under my breath, half from fear, half from disbelief. I checked the nurse's station, the medication cart, the lab bins, nothing. Then, when I opened the door to the supply room, the chart was sitting right there on the counter. Open. With a new name scribbled across it in shaky pen. Claire M. My name. I stood frozen for a full minute, staring at that handwriting. I hadn't written it. No one had been near that room. I felt the air shift, a cold, heavy pressure, like the oxygen had been sucked out. The shelves rattled. Then someone whispered my name, right next to my ear. I turned so fast I hit the cart. Nothing. Just rows of sterile gloves and saline bags swaying slightly. My reflection in the glass cabinet looked off. My eyes seemed darker, my face thinner, like I'd aged years overnight. Jonah was supposed to be on break, but I found him in the security room, staring at the live feed from the ICU cameras. "Do you see that?" he asked, pointing to the screen. On the monitor, I could see myself, sitting at the nurse's station, writing vitals. But someone was standing behind me, head bent over my shoulder. A man in a soaked hospital gown. I spun around, the hallway behind me was empty. When I turned back to the monitor, the figure was gone. Jonah rubbed his face. "This building's cursed," he muttered. "We all know it." That was the first time I saw fear on his face. An hour later, alarms blared, code blue, isolation 3. I ran down the corridor. The lights flickered in rhythmic bursts as if syncing with my heartbeat. When I reached the room, the bed was empty. The monitor flatlined. The name tag on the door said, Mr. Halverson. The same man from bed 9. The one who died last week. I stepped inside. The heart monitor suddenly spiked. BPM, 72. O2 sat, 98%. The exact same numbers as before. The curtain rustled even though the air was still. I pulled it back, and there he was. lying in the bed. Eyes open. Mouth slightly parted, chest rising and falling like he was breathing. My mind screamed it's impossible, but my body froze. I touched his wrist, it was ice cold. He turned his head slowly toward me. And smiled. The power cut out. Total blackout. The only light came from the red emergency exit signs. I backed away, pulse pounding. My flashlight flickered to life. And illuminated dozens of footprints across the floor, wet and glistening, all leading toward me. The intercom clicked on. Code blue. Nurse Claire. Bed 9. I dropped the flashlight. It rolled across the floor, light spinning, catching glimpses of faces reflected in the ICU glass panels. Faces that weren't there when I turned around.